Can do, can do. This guy says the horse can do. If he says the horse can do.
Welcome to Odds and Ends, and as the coronavirus has claimed so many lives in the United States, I really want to reach out and wish my best to everybody in New York, all my friends there, my relatives on the East Coast, especially my sister Mo in New Jersey, my Aunt Linda and Carla in New York, and all my cousins throughout the Northeast. I want to wish all my friends across the country a safe and at-home social distance. We're going to talk about the NFL draft, though. The NFL draft is going to occur on the 23rd, next Thursday, 24th, Friday, 25th, Saturday. First round will be on Thursday. I'm going to put out a couple of draft shows for you to have something to do and something to talk about. I'm excited today to have a guest, Tristan Wirfs of the University of Iowa, who is one of the top-rated tackles, if not the top-rated tackle, in the draft for this coming Thursday. Seen him go anywhere from number 5 to who knows, number 20. And he's a great kid, and it's a great interview, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Also, I'll have on Nate Tice. My son will talk the top wide receivers in Thursday's first round and possibly ones that could sink down to the second round or slip up or sneak up, I should say, to that first round. So we'll be back in a minute with more of Odds and Ends.
Can do. This guy says the horse can do. If he says the horse can do, can do.
All right, so welcome back to Odds and Ends, and I'm really pleased to have on my next guest, Tristan Wirfs from the University of Iowa, junior, right tackle, number 74, born and raised in Mount Vernon, Iowa. Tremendous high school athlete, won the state discus championship as a sophomore, won the state wrestling championship, and this year in 2019 was voted Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year. I should be your agent, not Jeremy Newberry, huh? Welcome to the show, Tristan.
Thank you.
Yep. Are you excited about I know it's not going to be the same where you're getting a chance to go to Las Vegas and be on that big stage there in front of the Bellagio, but you got to be pretty much excited about your prospects coming into the draft.
Oh, absolutely. I'm pumped. When it comes down to it, it's all about just playing football. But getting to go to Vegas and be able to walk across stage, that would have been cool. But it's really just about playing football.
Yeah, you've been ranked in some of the mock drafts I've looked at, some of which I don't pay attention to, but the ones that I think kind of know what they're talking about. You've been ranked anywhere from the first best offensive lineman in the draft to the fourth best offensive lineman in the draft. I'm sure you've seen that. You had a tremendous combine. You were outstanding. I was blessed to be there and watch you athletes out there performing. Coach Doyle must have been really proud of your achievements at the combine.
Yeah, that was, I had a blast at the combine. Coach Doyle, that was kind of a big thing, when I was choosing an agent, was when I wanted to stay and train with Coach Doyle because I knew, he knows what he's talking about, and he'd get us, ready, to perform our best. But yeah, I had a blast at the combine.
Yeah, no, it looked like you were having fun. So yeah. Tell me a couple things here. Tell me the best non-football moment you had at Iowa.
I think it kind of, I guess I would say getting to go to the Children's Hospital and hang out with the kids. That's definitely number one.
How come I knew you were going to say that?
Yeah.
That's outstanding what you guys do. They've just started a tradition. So for the fans, my fans out there that don't know, talk about what the team does, including the visiting teams do at every home game at Iowa.
Yeah, so it just got started on Facebook. Somebody just came up with the idea, and then it turned into a real thing. But after the first quarter, both teams, all the fans, we turn and wave to the Children's Hospital is right next to the stadium, and the kids go up to I think it's the 11th floor. They can they can watch the game. They can see us, and we all wave to them, and it's pretty special.
It is very, very special, and actually I've seen it on television a couple of times, and actually it brings tears of joy to your eyes, and I really enjoy how the visiting teams get involved in that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. So where are you training right now?
There's a little place right down the road from my house. The guys from Mount Vernon. He he's letting me come in and train. But just trying to stay close to a routine as I can. Little different times. I got to kind of do some makeshift things because it's a CrossFit gym, so it doesn't have quite as much stuff as Iowa's weight room. But it gets the job done. It's been great over there.
You get a chance to work on your football movements as well?
Yeah, there's a little strip of turf in there too.
Oh, cool. All right, cool. So now we can transfer over and tell me, this one will come easy, your best football moment at Iowa.
Oh, geez. I think beating Ohio State my freshman year, and having the fans storm the field just because, I don't know, I think being my first year there, getting to be a part of storming the field and beating a team. I think they were ranked like third in the country at that time. So that was incredible.
Yeah, that was a big win. And my son went to Wisconsin, and of course I lived in Minnesota for over a decade, followed the Big Ten. My wife, Diane, and I are huge Big Ten fans. And so really big fan of your head coach, Kurt Ferenz.
Yep.
Does a tremendous job, has always done a tremendous job. One of the better coaches out there. And of course, one of the great Iowa head coaches in a long line of great Iowa head coaches.
Oh, absolutely.
Who's the best player you played against in your career? Or maybe let's just talk about the best player you played against this year, Tristan.
Oh, I always got to say AJ Epinesa, going against him in practice every day. We're making each other better. He makes Saturday a little bit easier for me.
That's good.
But this year, I think it's a toss up between Josh Uche from Michigan and Yetur Gross-Matos from Penn State.
Okay.
Those two guys are pretty good.
Yeah, I watched that Penn State game. Yeah, that was a good game. Yeah. And then what was your best game, would you say, this year that you played in? Your best performance?
I think maybe the Holiday Bowl against USC.
Mm-hmm. USC surprised some people this year. They did a nice job. They got some good athletes there. So what do you think you need to improve on? And what do you think, or what have some teams told you, if they have told you, what you need to improve on to be a better pro?
Some teams told me, I got to stay connected on blocks. Don't lose guys late. And I gotta stay more square in my sets. There's a couple of times on film where I open up, and I kind of get picked on a tackle end game. But definitely staying connected on guys late.
Yeah. Well, you can stay square. Just keep that inside foot perpendicular line of scrimmage. Here I am coaching a lineman, right?
Love it.
What do you do for fun? I'm sure
the
fans want to know what you do for fun.
Yeah, I watch a lot of movies. I've seen a lot of 80s movies. I can't remember the actor's name from The Breakfast Club. He was like a nerd in The Breakfast Club.
Right.
16 Candles. But I love those movies. The First Bueller's Day Off. I love Johnny Be Good.
Oh yeah.
With young Uma Thurman and young Robert Downey Jr. in it. That's a great movie. But and I'm starting, in this quarantine thing, I'm starting to play video games a little bit more. My roommates are really good at video games. I was never the best at them, but I'm starting to get a little bit better.
You ever play that Jackbox? Because I have two millennials, and so we signed up for that Jackbox online that you play these trivia games online, and you can play with people from all around the country. It's pretty cool, actually.
Oh, I got to get on that, though. I love trivia.
Oh, yeah, you got to check it out. It's called Jackbox. It's pretty cool. So we talked about this before the show. Tell the fans out there your favorite teams or the teams that you were raised following, and tell the fans why. Like you told me, it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So I never really had a favorite team growing up. My uncle liked the Chargers and my mom liked the Steelers. So that's kind of who I go over to my uncle's house and watch football with him. I watch football with my mom. But I never really had a favorite team growing up.
Yeah, that's a good answer, especially now with the draft coming up. Well, the Vikings have 2 picks in the first round. They're right up the street. Do you have any, I know what you're going to say, but I got to ask the question anyway. Do you have any preference of where you go or not really? You just want to go and get going on your NFL career?
Yeah, I don't really have any preference. People are like, oh, you want to go somewhere warm? I was like, well, born and raised in Iowa. I love the cold. So,
right.
Minnesota that'd be I like Minneapolis. My girlfriend's from Minnesota, but yeah, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm just ready to get going.
Well, you got a hell of an agent, Jeremy Newberry, great player in his own regard. Was very, very pleased to be able to get a chance to talk to you today. I know you got a lot to do, not really, because there's nothing to do except eat.
Yep.
And just continue to train well. Stay focused. I'm really rooting for you. I'm looking forward to you going pretty high in the doggone draft and starting your NFL career. Thanks for taking the time of coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, man. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again, Tristan, for coming on, and best of luck to you in the draft on Thursday. I'm sure that things are going to work out very, very well for you and your family. Up next is my son, Nate Tice, talking about the wide receivers that can possibly go in the first round of this year's NFL draft in a minute when we come back with Odds and Ends. Well, welcome back to Odds and Ends. And my next guest, well, I know this guy, pretty much decently. Only raised him from a little swaddling. Nate Tice, former Wisconsin Badger quarterback, former University of Pitt graduate assistant under Paul Christ, Atlanta Falcons scouting assistant under Thomas Dimitroff, Oakland Raiders assistant coach, offensive assistant under Jack Del Rio, and Atlanta of the Alliance of American Football personnel director. My son, Nate Tice. Nate, thanks for joining me on Odds and Ends. Pretty weird, huh?
It is. Thanks for having me. I'm glad you could squeeze me into your schedule.
Yes, please. Well, I want to squeeze you in because you're knowledgeable and I know you do a lot of research, and today for the fans out there, we're going to talk NFL draft. This is one of our NFL draft segments that we're going to do leading up to next Thursday's draft. That will be done virtually. I want to talk to Nate about wide receivers today, and we're going to talk to top wide receivers. We're going to talk wide receivers in the first round or possibly the high second round. And maybe some sleepers that Nate has out there and wants to share with us today. So let's start out with first round wide receivers, Nate, as you see them. And why don't you give me a name or two right off the top of your head that you think will be high draft picks in the first round of Thursday's draft?
Yeah, overall, I mean, it's been stated everywhere, Twitter, ESPN, anything online you see, it's a loaded receiver class. I mean, any way you cut it. There's top tier talent. There's different types of guys, just different types of skill sets. It's a really exciting class, which makes it fun. And really the top two guys, what guys that I consider those top tier to me is CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma and Jerry Jeudy from Alabama. And those two, I think I would put CeeDee maybe a hair above Jeudy, but it's really more of a taste thing. I think those two are the clear cut that those guys are comfortable to be selected in those 10 to 20 range. That is that clear cut first round elite guys. And after that, there's a whole bunch of very, very good talent, but those are the two, I would say, elite talents of this draft so far.
Where do you see, Nate, where do you see Henry Ruggs fit in? Henry Ruggs III, I'm sorry, another Alabama Crimson Tide wide receiver. Where do you see him fit with that those two that you talked about? Because I've seen reports and mock drafts of guys and people that I, excuse me, respect out there. And Henry Ruggs was on the top of some lists, and CeeDee Lamb and Judy were on the top of other lists.
I think Ruggs is more of a luxury pick. He's a type of guy that's a cherry on top for an offense, as opposed to a guy that you maybe build around, and he can develop into that as a true number one or even a very good number two. But really, I think he comes in this league as more of those kind of a Deshaun Jackson deep threat that takes the top off the defense. And I think that's more for an offense that already has other pieces in place. And that's the cherry on top to truly unlock an offense. Like maybe a team that already has a true number one, maybe even a good number two, and then they just need that extra push to make an offense elite. And I have him personally. I think that kind of value is a middle or early second round pick. I can see maybe a winning team taking him in the 20s. I'm not real comfortable taking a guy like that earlier than that. But I mean, he has game breaking speed. It is just that he is not a true route runner at this point in time. He didn't face a lot of press. A lot of his routes are long, over the top routes or goes or catching a slant in space, as opposed to working against a press guy and having to actually work for his routes. I'm not saying he's lazy or anything. I'm just saying that he didn't really have a lot of times where he had to actually win on a route. And
So
to me, it's more of a luxury pick.
Okay, and that makes sense. You're talking about a speed guy, you know, an X that can knock the top off of it. But talk to me about what you see CeeDee Lamb from Oklahoma, what he brings to the table, and Jerry Jeudy, the other Alabama wideout, what they bring to the table, what makes them rank higher in your eyes.
I absolutely love CD. I'm not going to lie. I think he's just an all-around great player. He's extremely competitive, which I love out of a receiver. He works on releases when it's a run play, just trying to bait the corner into working a little extra harder. He moves across the formation, which I love. I mean, I saw some people saying that he's a gadget guy, which I just do not see, because he actually runs real routes. Oklahoma's offense is so much fun, of course. So maybe that can skew perspective on it, but he plays bigger than he is. He measured in just about 6'2", about 200 pounds. He ran a 4.5. He plays faster than a 4.5 though, which is always fun to see. And I actually, like, the only comparison I really had for him was almost a smaller, skinnier DeAndre Hopkins, which is high praise. But that's the type of player he is, where he's extremely physical. He wins with strength and balance, as opposed to maybe a burst. And he's good with the ball in his hands. It's just not that typical jukey, split the seam kind of guy. He's a guy that he gets bumped and he's staying on his feet and breaking about 3 tackles and gaining an extra 12, 15 yards. And then going on to Jeudy, the other Alabama receiver, he's extremely twitchy, very, very twitchy, very fun with the ball in his hands. Like I was saying with CeeDee, he's more strength and balance. Jeudy is pure twitch and juking. He can literally stop on the dime. And a guy that, like, he really reminded me of was Peter Warrick, the old Florida State receiver, who was kind of ahead of his time based on when he came into the league. But he's got great feet, he's a great route runner. My only qualm with him a little bit, and it's not the worst issue, is he's almost overly too twitchy. Where, if you remember Amari Cooper, where sometimes he'll be short on a route because he is so quick, and when his head, he's thinking he's getting to that 9, 10, 11 yards on routes, but really he's getting to 6 or 7. But I'd rather have a guy be able to be that twitchy and coach it out of him, or coach it into him. Hey, make sure you get that extra step, than the other way around, where a guy just can't do it. And my only other issue with Jeudy is he has some drops issues. And the drops really seem to be balls coming right at him. And it's not really long arms or anything. It's almost like he goes cross-eyed. If that ball comes at his chin or his face, he like goes cross-eyed and doesn't know how to use his hands. And that's something I kind of noticed with him, and that always worries me, especially if a guy you're taking in the first round drops, is kind of one of those things you don't want to see. You're taking a receiver in the first round, they better be a legit guy with not a lot of blemishes, and drops is a pretty big blemish when a guy is supposed to be a receiver.
Yep, no, those are good points, all good points for all three of those receivers, including Ruggs. Talk to me about the next couple of guys you like there in that first round, or somebody that you think might bump up into the first round as we move forward here into next Thursday's draft.
The next tier for me, after the Lamb and Jeudy top tier. So this kind of second tier, which I consider late first rounders, would be Justin Jefferson from LSU and T. Higgins from Clemson. And they're two vastly different players. T. Higgins, I would rank it a little bit higher. Again, this is more of a scheme fit, or a team fit, I should say, about what you have. T. Higgins, I think, can develop into, I really think, a Pro Bowl receiver. He is big. He's athletic. Some people are worried about his long speed. I saw him in the playoffs stacking an Oklahoma receiver. So I didn't really, or Oklahoma corner, I'm sorry. So I don't really think an issue is long speed if he's able to stack a legit corner. It's not against like some small 1AA school, FCS school. And I think that his ball skills, I mean, I didn't see a drop in the 3-4 games I watched, didn't see a single drop, and he is catching balls out. I mean, his catching range is all over the place, and he can snag everything. And I think that's a skill that translates easily into the NFL. It's like rebounding, going from college basketball to the NBA. It's a skill that translates. Catching skills translate, and being able to catch and high point a ball, that skill translates, especially when you're 6'4", 215, and you got 34-inch arms. I mean, that's a big boy moving.
That's
and big boy. And the other guy that I really like, and the thing about him is he is more of it's almost like a glue guy, Justin Jefferson. He ran a lot better than maybe his tape indicates. He ran a low 4.4, and maybe his play speed's more of a 4.5 guy, which, 4.5 is still fast. I mean, let's be honest. But he really reminds me of Robert Woods from the LA Rams, formerly the Bills. Really versatile guy. He could play inside and out. He played a lot of inside from LSU. They ran a lot of bunch sets where he was the point man. And he is a plus blocker right away. Like, he'll come into the league and be a good blocker, which is, I know you'll love. And I think the thing with him is his upside, it might not be as high as these other guys, but I think he'll right away be a good pro. And he's going to be maybe one of those guys that plays 12 years and maybe never make a Pro Bowl, but everyone's like, oh, what a good player. Just like a guy like Robert Woods, where he does everything good, but maybe nothing elite. But that is a valuable player. Like, a really good number 2 receiver is a valuable player to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, I agree. And I like T. Higgins, his size and playing at that elite level against elite competition is really, really important. The same with CeeDee Lamb at Oklahoma and the Alabama guys, playing against that top tier competition. Who would be your next couple of guys there, Nate, in that first round or that late first round where you're at right now?
So kind of the cut from the same cloth a little bit is Denzel Mims from Baylor. And he's one of those guys where he wasn't asked to run a ton of routes. It's not the old Baylor scheme where it just goes and smokes over and over and over. But, he ran just a lot of glances, a lot of back shoulder go balls. But what really turned me on to him, he's a big boy, 6'3", about 210. He ran extremely well. He had a great 3 cone. So it's always good to see a big man that can move around those cones like that. And he's got long arms. I saw a couple clips where he actually was running a curl route or an out route. He actually looked good running it. And it was a tight turn. It wasn't real loose, and he wasn't airplaning his arms, being out of balance. And his catching skills are out of this world too, just like T. Higgins. It was kind of funny. I actually, sometimes in my brain, would mix them up a little bit because they both would bring that to the table where they would extend their arms and catch balls. And to be honest, Mims had to do it a lot more. He wasn't getting help from QB play at Baylor. And he had to catch a lot of bad balls as opposed to what Higgins had to do when he has a future top 5 pick and Trevor Lawrence thrown to him. But he's a great player, and Mims is one of those guys I think might actually end up being a better pro than we're giving him credit for, because I think there's more to him than he's showed, because I think he just wasn't asked to do a lot, and I think the quarterback wasn't helping him out a lot. And I think he's going to be a really good player.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I see him in the first round as well. Are there any of those second round guys that I see in the second round, like the kid from Shono from Colorado, or Hamler from Penn State, or Ajuk from Arizona State, the Notre Dame kid, Claypool, you see any of those kids possibly moving up the end of the first round, Nate?
I personally, I don't see any of those. My best of the rest list is Jalen Reagor from TCU. Aok from Arizona State. I might be saying his name wrong, and Shano. So we're both just butchering names here.
Right.
Shano from Colorado. But I think those three are that best of the rest. And all three of those guys, I don't see as first rounders. I see them more as middle, late, even early third draft picks, because all of them, and I'm going to just group them together because they kind of have some similar skill sets. Rager from TCU, he's another guy that had to play with some bad QB play, and he was used as a gadget guy, a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of bubbles, smoke screens, all those type of things. And he didn't have to ask around run a real route tree, but he's a plus returner, which always has value.
Absolutely.
And yes, and with him, what kind of frustrated, I wouldn't say frustrate, but what kind of I saw as a limited thing with him was his catching range was quite limited. He didn't play bigger than he was. Like I watched him on film, I was like, he's 5'11", and and at the combine, sure enough, he was 5'11". Like that's what he plays as big as he is. He's extremely explosive. I just think he is going to be used in the NFL in maybe a limited role, because I think that's all he can bring to the table, and almost in that Tariq Cohen role. And I'm going to say this a couple of times with these next few guys, in that Tariq Cohen role, where they're maybe ideally the number 3 weapon in your offense, and you move them around the backfield, you split them out, kind of a gadget guy, but you get him 8 touches a game, but it's not someone you want to build the offense around. But you have a few plays in a package that you're like, okay, let's get this guy a ball, let him do work. And the next couple of guys are the same way. I would say Shano is I have him the same way with Rager, where I really looked at him as almost a less explosive, but you're going to like this, less explosive, but more polished version of CP, of Cordero Patterson, of our boy. So I think that is kind of what he is. He's built almost exactly the same. They're both about 6'1". And this is a big boy. He's 227, 228. He's probably going to be low 230s in the pros. He didn't run great, but he plays fast on film. He's a big boy moving. And they used him as a wildcat quarterback. They used him as a gadget guy, but they had him run routes. And I think ideally it's the same thing as I just said about Rager, is he's ideally your number 3 weapon that maybe can develop into a number 2, a solid number 2. And it depends how much you value that. If it's the Saints and they want to add another weapon in the second round, I'm all for it. But if it's a team really looking for a number 1, number 2, I wouldn't like that for those types of teams.
Right.
And the third for that group right there, Brandon Aok from Arizona State. Right. He was a late bloomer. I should say late bloomer. He came from a JUCO, and this was his second year as a starter, as opposed to the first year starting behind N'Keal Harry. I'm butchering his name right now, who went to the New England Patriots. And he stepped up this year, and really I kind of didn't see as much as maybe other people did. You have to project a little bit with him. He was only asked to run slants, screens, and go balls. I mean, really, that was about it. And again, a lot of college receivers, you have to project. But I thought I kind of would see a little more. I likened him to a poor man's Golden Tate, where you catch a slant, he can split it. But I didn't see him breaking anybody off like a Golden Tate does, who's a former running back, converted receiver. He doesn't break anybody off. It's more of he's a split 2 defenders types of guy, which is the same as Ruggs. Ruggs just is that on fast forward because he's running a 4.2 doing it. So I just, that, and he also has return value, but that's a guy I really didn't see anything, maybe until the late second and early third. And I have been hearing that a lot of teams do like him. There's a lot of coaches around the league that are liking what they saw with him. So maybe he knocked the combine interviews out of the park. And he's a JUCO guy, so he had 2 years of quote unquote real coaching. So maybe he's a guy that can ascend once he enters the league, but I think he's more of a project than people are putting out there at this point.
No, that makes sense. And you get those speed guys. It is kind of a little bit of a plus if you're a winning team and you're looking to add that element there. Someone that can take the top off of it, as you talked about with Ruggs. So, no, that's a great group of receivers, Nate.
Absolutely.
And I know we have a lot more to talk about in coming days. I appreciate your time, continued your studies, and we'll talk about quarterbacks coming up here soon. And I think that'll be exciting to see your take on the quarterback position, which is very, very strong going into next Thursday's draft. Well, thanks a lot, all you people out there. We'll have some more of Odds and Ends, NFL Draft 2020, when we come right back.
This guy says the horse can do. If he says the horse can do, can do.
That's it for this episode of Odds and Ends. I really like to thank Tristan Wirfs for taking time to come on the show. I know he's not busy. No one's busy right now. My son, Nate Tice, what a great job he did with the wide receivers. We have more shows coming up in the next couple of days. Stay tuned. Odds and Ends. Check us out on Twitter at Odds and Ends Pod. And you can email me if you got any problems at oddsandendspod@gmail.com. Be safe. Stay home. Social distance.
This
God
guy
bless.
says the horse can do. If he says the horse can do,